So this is Dale Barnes, Certified Legal Nurse Consultant, and I've asked Dale to talk with me today about independent medical exams, or in some states they're referred to as defense medical exams. So Dale, tell us a little bit about the process when you're sitting in on an IME or DME. What's the process? What's your role?
Well, my role, if I'm there with the plaintiff, which is what I'm usually there for, is I'm there as their advocate, and I am there to protect them. I'm there to see exactly what their injuries are. I'm there to record everything so the attorney has a very good record of what has taken place.
And when you say record, do you mean audio record or document what's happening?
I do both.
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes they don't allow the audio recording, but most of the time they do. When I audio record, sometimes I even video.
All right, and so there's an advantage to audio recording it, because basically that means the MD or the practitioner who's doing the exam can't dispute what happened in the room. So that's a perfect reason to actually record it.
Well, that's true, but it's also important to document, because in an audio recording, you can't see what's happening.
Right.
So if a patient is grimacing, or if the physician does something that hurts them, you can't necessarily hear that in an audio.
Okay, so that's why you want to do both.
Exactly.
And I know that you said that you serve as an advocate if you're on the plaintiff side, right? And in the CLNC certification program, we teach that when they're working with attorneys that they're not there as an advocate. But the IME or DME is a little bit differently, because you're really there not just as a consultant, but as actually a fact witness to the entire event. And so that's why it's appropriate to serve as an advocate on behalf of that plaintiff, right?
Yes, that's true. And in addition, if anything inappropriate is said by the physician, or if he asks or tries to do an exam that isn't allowed, that's where I come in to speak up so that isn't happening.
Yeah, so you can step in and intervene on behalf of that plaintiff, because they might not know that the MD's doing something inappropriate. Now, what do you do differently if you're on the defense side?
On the defense side, I don't intervene at all. I'm there strictly as an observer to see if the plaintiff's issues are really what they're claiming to be.
Okay, so you might be able to walk away from that IME or DME and identify some defenses that can help better defend the case.
Absolutely.
And primarily relate it to the alleged injuries and damages in the case.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, very good. And you might identify causation issues, pre-existing conditions, or something of that nature in the exam as well, right?
Yes, they're not supposed to ask about those things, but it happens.
Sure, you bet. Okay. Give us a few tips, some of the things that maybe, I know you've been doing this how many years?
Since 1999.
Right, so you've been doing
18 years.
These exams for decades now, and I know that there's the obvious tips, but give us a couple of tips that maybe people who even have been doing these exams might not think about.
Well, first of all, be prepared. Make sure that you have extra batteries with you for your tape recorder. And I think a lot of the nurses that go do these exams forget that you can't see everything on the audio tape, so they forget to take notes. So I think that's very, very important.
Okay, so being a thorough note taker. In our office, we always say the person who takes the best notes wins, and that's really true, I think, in every aspect of what we do, not only in our business, but as you're saying, with attorneys, in an exam. It's important. That's
Yes.
a good one.
And also, I would say to make sure to contact the attorney afterwards, to make sure that the attorney is aware of what transpired right at that time. So the other thing is, I think a lot of people forget that if you get to the physician's office and there's any sort of an issue, a problem, if they make you wait too long, one instance I had was an interpreter was supposed to be there and wasn't, walk out and call the attorney.
Absolutely, that's really an important point. And one final thing that I want to ask you is if you could talk a little bit about your role after the exam. I know potentially you could be called in as a fact witness. How common is that?
For me, not at all.
Right, okay.
For me, not at all. And for me, it's also less common to write a report, but I'm prepared if I'm asked to do so. And there are those occasions when that does occur,
Yeah.
so I have to be prepared for that.
And I ask you this question because I know a lot of people, they get nervous about the possibility of having to testify, whether it's as an expert witness or as a fact witness or on behalf of an IME or DME. But I always like people to remember that 95% of these cases don't go to trial, and that's, for the most part, going to mean that in most of these cases, they're not going to get called in to testify.
Well, they're not, and in addition to that, it's important to know that if you're called as a fact witness, they don't try to trip you up as much.
Yeah.
It isn't as overwhelming as some people see testifying as an expert. Okay, it's not so much a credibility issue as relaying the facts.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, well, thank you, Dale, and I really appreciate your sharing your tips on DMEs and IMEs today.
Thank you.